morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Today's webinar is on vegetable gardening. It's one of my favorite topics. And today I'm going to be co-presenting with Derek Bryant.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Rahina. My name is Derek Bryant, and I work for the city of Santa Clara as a recreation coordinator. My main job, I was really hired to be the garden coordinator for their first community garden program and their first garden ever in the city of Santa Clara. Before that, I did a lot of garden programming for kids and adults at schools, after school programs and adult education classes. And I also, before that, did a lot of backyard gardens for people starting their edible landscaping. Today is gardening for beginners, which is appropriate for me because I should say that I don't have any formal education on plants, agriculture. I'm really self-taught for the last 7 years, and I have taken a lot of courses to learn a bit more about sustainable gardening, organic gardening. And so I know when it comes to edible gardening, it's always a discussion more than it is a lesson. So I've already seen Susan adding in her ideas or her knowledge about some of these things. So I welcome those discussions, and I'm happy to be here.
I met Derek last year when I was at one of the classes that he had organized at the Community Garden Center. And it's a very beautiful garden center. It has lots of vegetable beds, fruit trees, and a nice park-like area at the entrance. And then, I realized that even though as part of my projects, I do talk to clients about vegetable gardens and fruit trees, it's an area that I don't know too much about, but I would like to get more informed. So I thought about this webinar as a good idea to hopefully include vegetable gardens and fruit trees in all my designs. So some of you have been on previous webinars. I just wanted to quickly go over a round of introductions so that everybody knows everybody else. Did you want to start, Susan?
Oh, hi, I'm Susan Karasoff with California Native Plant Society, and I'm completely passionate about that intersection between edible plants and native plants. So that's kind of all I care about. Well, okay, and butterfly plants and bee plants, but yeah, edible plants.
Okay. Yeah, you had a lot of information on edible plants, edible native plants. Kathy or Grace?
Which Susan is that again? What's your last name?
Hi, I'm Susan Karasoff.
Are you in the CNPS Santa Clara County chapter then?
I'm not. I'm in the Yerba Buena chapter in San Francisco. But a lot of the things that we grow up here in San Francisco, you can grow down in Santa Clara.
Right. That's why I don't know you. I'm also a native plant person, and I am also interested in native plant edibles, and I'm myself trying out a hawthorn native this year and a chokecherry as additions.
Ooh, the Prunus ilicifolia? Which Prunus?
Oh, no, chokecherry is the Prunus virginiana.
Demesia? Yeah, I have never eaten that one. Actually, I've never eaten ilicifolia either. Let me know what that tastes like.
Ilicifolia, the cherries are very delicious. It's just the pits are large.
Oh, nice. And I didn't know how.
Well, interesting. I think last time you mentioned it, Grace.
Yeah, various things. Sometimes you don't eat them off the tree. You like I think chokecherry is something people make jams out of. So some things you actually have to cook, and then you have to be careful with elderberry, right? The twigs and leaves are poisonous, and so you need to be able to funnel out the little flowers if you're making elderberry syrup, or separate out the berries from the twigs. There's like know-how involved sometimes.
Well, we are going to get into some of the edible plants towards the end of the presentation. We'll get into the discussion part, get more into the planting and the design. Kathy, you want to introduce yourself?
This is Kathy Hansen, and I am a master gardener. So I know you said you didn't have any formal training. Master gardeners might be a good program for you with Santa Clara County if you're interested in kind of some formal training.
All right. Today we're going to learn about starting and maintaining a vegetable garden. Derek is going to get more into the how-tos and all the technical aspects. I'm going to talk about design considerations. On and off, my clients have been Some of them have been hands-on gardening experts, and some of them, they like the idea of an edible garden. And I like to make sure that the garden works, so I take into account some of the design considerations. And then after that, Derek will go over other resources and how to actually get a vegetable garden at the community garden centers. And then we can have a discussion. Derek, you can start with your portion of the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. These are a few flicks from the Eddie Souza Community Garden in City of Santa Clara. We have raised beds, and I do programming. I invite the master gardeners to speak, and sometimes I do hands-on workshops. And what you see here are children kind of tending to the children bed, and you see a Santa Clara master gardener talking about our citrus trees, which I'll get into a little bit later. So I'll be talking through the lens of this community garden and how we built it here. And so I want to show you, this is some flicks of the community garden. It was just built a few years ago on top of an empty lot that only served as a pumpkin patch and a Christmas tree lot. And so we have 56 families, we have group beds, we have a lot of features in this garden, compost area, mini orchard, and we'll talk about some of that. So it's planted very densely, as you see, and I'm going to probably pull some of those out, but it's really to get people ideas about low water, drought tolerant plants, plant protection from squirrels and other pests. And we have a policy in our garden where we try to stay away from plastic. So if you go again, I want to show you how these raised beds are constructed. This may be something you guys have never seen before. You notice that the beds are framed with they're surrounded by a concrete frame, and then they're held by bolts on into the concrete. If you see the next slide, you can see how they were built. There are no, okay, it is hollow in the middle there. I wish that we would have put some wire mesh, so that we wouldn't have a gopher issue, but that hasn't been an issue yet. So just to show you, there is no concrete under the garden beds. But as you see, these beds are bolted in, and they're designed that way. So when we bring trucks in, if something gets ruined or if a piece is rotted faster than another, you can fix it piece by piece instead of replacing the entire bed. So these are an expensive design, but because they're redwood, they're already going to be very sustainable. 20 years they could last, but just in case, we designed them this way.
So when you build something like this, how much does it cost, and does it take a permit, or because it's considered like a permanent structure, would it take a permit?
For a backyard, I don't see why you would need a permit.
It being a structure, wouldn't it cover a certain square footage of the backyard?
I'm not sure. That's probably a little bit more of your expertise. I saw a comment here. Someone asked about hugelkultur. Yeah, I love hugelkultur. I think it's a great idea. If there were trees that were chopped down in the process, I think that's a great idea to throw the logs into the soil so that they do slowly release those nutrients. I've been practicing hugelkultur in my community garden, and it's awesome. You get your turkey tail mushrooms coming off of the logs, and because I half bury them sometimes, I think that's a great idea to use all the resources available to you when you're creating a garden. And I like to create a type of permaculture atmosphere where we are using everything and putting everything back into the soil. In this garden, we have the option to haul off our garden waste, but we don't. We have a compost area which needs some formatting, because composting with all the volume of waste that comes from this garden, processing that so it breaks down faster is a challenge. But for a backyard, it's perfectly reasonable, and I would say necessary.
So how much would it cost to build some of these same dimensions like we were talking about? Could you just go over the cost implications?
Yeah. The cost for these, I would think, would be about maybe $1,000 for a bed. These beds are from edge of soil to edge of soil 3 feet long and 3 feet wide. I would prefer a 4 foot wide bed. If you go from If you see the lip that you can sit on there, they are 4 feet. I think for square foot gardening practices, a 4-foot wide bed is desirable. And again, these are expensive beds with the way they're designed here. So they could cost maybe $1,000 each. And the beds are about 6 to 8 foot long. We have different sizes.
Okay.
And so we have a policy of no plastic as much as we can in the garden. If we're using netting, we'd rather you use cloth than just for the look of the garden. We like to use wood instead here. And so I think just for aesthetics and just for sustainability, we would like to use wood there. And so it is not very cost effective, of course. So it's not like a hard policy that we enforce out there. This picture on the left, he had it as a PVC garden, and I kind of talked him into using wood, and he appreciated that. So in our community garden, actually, we only have people in there for 3 years at a time, and then we push them out to get into the wait list. And during those 3 years, we provide as many programs and workshops so that they can really take away more practices when they're done with their experience at our community garden. But, you know, you always want to consider some type of protection for your garden, because no matter what, you will always get pests getting in there. And there is a way to do it pretty, and instead of using a lot of reused material like a lot of people do, which I agree with too, right? I actually reclaim wood all the time to build my garden structures, especially in my other community garden. But, you know, we also want our gardens to be pretty.
So when you say leaching, is it from how does the plastic differ from wood?
Yeah, we were talking about leaching before, and why you would use redwood versus another type of wood, or why you would not want to use PVC. The chemicals that are in those pre-treated woods that a lot of landscapers will recommend. And I think that's why this discussion is important. We have a lot of landscape designers that are not used to edibles, and so their usual go-to materials are not ones that you would want to use in an edible landscape.